60 seconds. Okay? Because there's a lot of figures in some of these slides. So are you guys ready? Because this is like 15 minutes of either sheer hell or pure fun. So, first up, Dr. Tim Zeus.
Ready, set.
Hello everyone, how are you? Yeah, start the clock.
Go.
Go. Uh-oh. There we go. Okay, so protein and exercise, we know there's a relationship between the dose of protein and that at doses around 20 grams or so you get a plateau in the muscle protein synthetic response, at least if you're a young fit person. We studied an ingredient called velocitol in 10 healthy men to examine the effects of that ingredient, which is a blend of 1,000 micrograms of chromium and 1.8 grams of amylopectin. And we did a bunch of muscle biopsies and some stable isotope infusions and a bunch of blood samples. And bottom line is, we found a doubling of the increase in fractional synthesis rate of muscle protein. So if you take a 6-gram dose of whey protein along with this ingredient, you essentially double the response in muscle tissue. Why? We don't really know, but it's very interesting. And if you compare this to other, am I good? And if you compare this to other studies, you see that it even trumps a 20-gram dose.
Very good job. Were you here?
We used the women's soccer team at Rutgers to analyze them throughout the season this year, tracking biomarkers. We had a full panel of about 40 or 50 markers using Blueprint for Athletes from Quest Diagnostics. We did blood draws throughout the season, once every month, starting at the beginning of preseason up through their Final Four game. When you look at our cortisol values, what we basically saw was that cortisol continued to climb throughout the season, peaking right after our Elite 8 game. Saw the same thing with interleukin-6, and it climbed specifically towards the end of the year. A lot of the original damage was done towards the end of preseason, continued to climb. The patterns actually matched our record and our ranking, as a matter of fact, and they went back to their old habits there. What we saw with iron, which was interesting, omega 6-to-3 ratio and total vitamin D, is a decline throughout the season, suggesting continued breakdown and inflammation, suggesting that we need dietary intervention with the athletes. Boom.
Oh, that's funny. Ready, set, go.
Yes, so there are a couple of different ways that you can improve how your brain works. Amongst the different ways that I'm going to cover in a very brief time today will be a nutritional compound that has been proven and shown to cross the blood-brain barrier, and one that has been shown by its ability to increase vasodilation to improve mental capacity. In this first one, this is a study that we were doing on something called magnesium threonate, and however you pronounce it, you pronounce it. And here what we did is we took a group of older adults that have onset of mild memory cognitive impairment. And we found that over a series of 6 weeks to 12 weeks that there was an improvement in their ability for executive function, which improved mental capacity. Then we also took a look at some data and how does it compare to time. If you look at the chart on the right, you can see that as we age, we generally have a 1% decline in mental ability, and this will help prevent that.
I guess he had a few more slides to cover. Okay. I was going to do the Jeopardy thing and just let you read, but I changed my mind. So anyway, we did a descriptive study looking at the nutritional habits of Division I strength and power athletes. And we had 3 different Division I universities, as you can see, in the 10 different sports on the left side. And you can see that the athletes indicated whether they were on a weight loss, weight gain, or maintenance program. Okay. Also, when you look at the evaluations of their energy balance intake, a greater majority of the athletes were below where they should have been from a macronutrient standpoint, which is really no surprise. They've indicated that they ate better at home than they did on the road for road trips. Interesting segment of this particular slide, 82% of the athletes indicated they were hungry before practice, during and during competition.
And that leads to the issues relative to not only performance, but what about injury situations? You don't like my cartoons?
Thank you.
Here's the best one right there. Have you ever been diagnosed with a hydration status? Don't ask me to do this next year.
Ready?
Yeah.
Go.
Go. Okay. That's me. We did a clinical trial on mimetic-rich acid, conjugated linoleic acid, which is just the 911 isomer of conjugated linoleic acid. So that's what we studied. Essentially, we did. It's a lot of stuff for 1 minute. We had a couple different groups, went through intervention over 8 weeks. We looked at cognitive test performance too. We did a few of them down there. And then the results were basically nothing for hand grip strength or endurance, but there was a little bit of an effect for memory and cognition in that we got a little bit of difference, I think, yep, a little bit of difference. Conclusion was, basically, they didn't affect hand grip strength or anything like that, but it did improve cognitive function in one of the measurements.
Good job. Ready? Go.
Ready? Okay, so we looked at UCAN Superstarch versus Gatorade. We obviously understand that we can store quite a bit more fat. We do, even if you're a lean athlete. If you can avoid the sugar chronic intake, do we have a better ability to use fat as a fuel? Maybe not. Some of the data shows that if you are taking this as a pre-workout before cycling, you do have increases in glycerol and free fatty acids. That's nice, but no difference in performance. So we decided to look at it pre and during exercise. So steady state exercise, number of crazy sprints, a lot of bar sessions here, and we followed that up with 60 grams during as well as 60 grams per hour during this long exercise session. We saw a big increase in fat oxidation with UCAN. We saw absolutely no difference in performance, and we saw lots more nausea with UCAN, leading to more of this. Go Knowles.
Go.
First one.
Yep.
Carnosine is a buffer in muscle. Synthesis is limited by the availability of beta-alanine. Question is, what dose of beta-alanine should be given, and how long should supplementation be taken for? We know that synthesis of carnosine is zero order with respect to beta-alanine supplied, and I give you a formula there. Rate of decrease after you stop supplementation is zero order and first order. You can take the two equations, put them together into an integrated form, and you get the bottom equation there. Okay, you do the maths, you get two equations, two lines for 3.2, 6.4 gram, and the implications are that increasing carnosine is dose dependent. A threshold is eventually reached, but it could be well in excess of 150 days, and the increase at threshold is again dose dependent. Got it.
Ready? Go.
Yeah. A common misperception among the general female population is they adopt a resistance training program. This will be the outcome. As a result, we get a resistance training prescription like this, and popular fitness professionals with little toy ping dumbbells like this. Consequently, many females do not train with an adequate intensity to maximally stimulate adaptation. The purpose of this study was to test that myth. We split the girls up into a moderate load and a high load group. They both did the same exercises. Volume was matched for 10 weeks. The results were that both groups got leaner, both groups lost body fat, both groups increased muscle cross-sectional area, and they both got stronger and performance was increased. In conclusion, the myth is busted. Resistance training to failure, regardless of load, is going to improve measure of aesthetics and performance in untrained college females. A quick acknowledgement to my team of undergraduate research assistants.
Beautiful. Ready? Go.
Okay, a little bit of a practical presentation, looking at body composition changes of a UFC fighter during a camp. Biggest thing to note with these phases are we looking at this 5 weeks out, we should be in a phase in which we are training at high intensity at the weight in which we plan on fighting. This says the same thing. Looking at the numbers, guy comes into our facility at 186 pounds, UFC wants him heavier before they sign him, he comes into camp at 194 pounds. He will cut into 185, in which that will be his high intensity bouts. You're going to see 1 week out, he is at 182.4. Fight week, he will drop 12.4 pounds and will refuel up to 184.1 pounds for the fight in a 24-hour period. What's the moral of the story? Get huge, lose fat, dehydrate, rehydrate, and fight.
Very nice. Ready? Go.
Great. Question is, does high protein improve body composition in aspiring female physique athletes? We had 17 resistance trained females. Some of my subjects are here today. The majority of which had expressed a desire to compete in a physique competition within the next year. The high group was not allowed to eat less than 2.4 grams per kg of protein. The low group could not eat more than 1.2 grams. So we have a big difference in protein consumption over the course of 8 weeks with a resistance training program. And we measured body composition. No differences in fat mass, no differences in body weight. The primary finding was the high protein group gained significantly more fat-free mass than the low protein group. By the way, there were no restrictions on fat or carbohydrates. The only thing they had to do was hit these protein thresholds. And interestingly, they ate about 425 more calories per day over the course of the 8 weeks. Shut that off. Real quick. Yes, that's that. Thank you to my research assistants. Thank you to Diamond Tide for sponsoring.
All right, welcome everybody. So if you go to the store, there's protein bars literally everywhere, right? And if you look, there are about 20 grams of carbs, but 18 grams of fiber, 2 net carbs, right? Is that the case? 2 major fiber sources, soluble corn fiber and isomaltyl oligosaccharides. How do we test them? Well, 3 criteria, basically. Blood glucose response, there should be none. Insulin response, there should be none. And fermentation. If it gets past the small intestine, it should be fermented in the large intestine. What do we find? If you look at soluble corn fiber, high fermentation right there. Isomaltyl oligosaccharides, none. Isomaltyl oligosaccharides up top, high glucose response, high insulin response. Soluble corn fiber, no different than a control. The conclusion is soluble corn fiber is an actual fiber and isomaltyl oligosaccharides are not. So when you select a protein bar, boom, make sure you look at the label and make the right decision. Thank you.
Ready? Go.
Our main research question was, does how we diet influence weight loss, and more importantly, does it influence weight regain? We had 27 resistance-trained males and females, 25 years of age on average, and an average body fat of 20.5%. They were randomized to either an inclusive or an exclusive diet group, which was a macro tracking group or a meal plan group. They had a 10-week diet followed by a 10-week post-diet period. They continued their normal training throughout the entire 20 weeks. There was no results. Our results showed that there was no differences in body weight, body composition, or metabolism during the diet phase. However, during the post-diet phase, the inclusive or the macro tracking group gained significantly more lean body mass than the exclusive meal plan group. Our conclusion is that an inclusive or an exclusive diet strategy is equally as effective for weight loss during a caloric-restricted diet in free-living resistance-trained individuals. However, it appears that a flexible diet may be more beneficial in creating a greater anabolic environment post-diet.
Good job.
That's 15 seconds you take.
All right, this is a study that we had published earlier this year where we looked at the potential effects of BCAAs or leucine with carbohydrate in skeletal muscle in response to an acute bout of resistance exercise, and its effects on gene expression of protein intermediate markers indicative of myogenic activation of satellite cells. We had 4 groups. We had a carbohydrate group, carbohydrate BCAA, carbohydrate leucine, and placebo, which was just crystal light. Acute bout of resistance exercise, carbohydrate 150 grams, BCAA 120 milligrams per kilogram, leucine 60 milligrams per kilogram. The leucine dose in BCAA and leucine was the same. We took blood and muscle biopsies. Serum IGF-1, significantly different here, area under the curve for carbohydrate BCAA. Looking at the cyclin-dependent kinases in the cyclin, which are indicative of myogenic activation. No fact.
Okay.
Ready? Go.
We most often see the results of supplement studies presented as averages or means. We rarely see the individual raw data, which would help us determine responders versus non-responders. And caffeine is no exception. In my recent randomized control trial, I saw an improvement of 42 seconds or 3.5% in 100 subjects doing a 10-kilometer time trial under conditions of placebo versus 4 milligrams of caffeine per kilogram of body weight. However, look at my individual raw data. It's a mess, and there's no clear improvement. Only 58 actually improved, 9 had no change, and 37 actually did worse. Not everyone benefits from caffeine. It depends on your genetics, and this is due to genetic variation in a specific gene that I've identified. What gene is it? Who improved? Who didn't? And who did worse? Come to my session tomorrow morning and find
Ready? Go.
All right, high protein diets, you guys know I love high protein, but high protein diets and safety, is it really much ado about nothing? Who makes this stuff up? When I was in college, my professor said, eating a high protein diet is bad for your kidneys, and I've heard that for what, 20 or 30 years. So, get guys and girls who eat a lot of protein look like this, and this, and this, and this. And even my daughter eats a ton of protein, and this. So, what gives? Well, this is a one-year study looking at guys eating 3 times the RDA, or greater than 3 times the RDA. Look at how much protein they're eating, up to 3 grams per kilo, and look how much fiber they're eating. High protein diets and high fiber diets are not mutually exclusive. Look at this guy, look at the bottom. He ate 1,055 grams of protein in 1 day. So, he went to Chipotle and had a lot of protein powder. So, what about safety? Is it safe? Well, let's look at kidney function. Check. Liver function, check. Blood lipids, clean as a cloistered nun. So, in conclusion, protein is safe, it doesn't harm the kidneys. Number 2, high protein diet can also be high in fiber, and most importantly, happy hour on the patio. It goes till 7 o'clock, so have a beer, and I hope you enjoyed the data Blitz. And if you guys have questions for any of the speakers, they'll be hanging out, and they'll be happy to help you. But again, free food, free drinks. Go to where the patio deck is. You'll see the open bar.
Okay.
And don't forget to vote.